All right, let's talk more about the State of the Union now with former Biden-era Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Marsha Espinosa, also former Trump campaign senior advisor Bruce LeVell. Marsha, let's start with you. President Trump heading into this address with an all-time low approval rating, but ABC polling shows Americans trust Democrats even less. So why are Democrats still failing to connect with voters, even with an unpopular Republican president?
Well, I think it depends on the issue. And tonight's moment is not just another speech, it's a survival mode for President Trump, who, as you mentioned, his approval ratings are going down. Voters are increasingly unhappy with his immigration tactics. You know, last year when he gave this speech, he had the big, beautiful bill to tout. This year, he doesn't have a whole lot where, questions about Iran are on the table. And the Republican House has a very slim majority. So I think that tonight it's a show about the Republicans, and it's a survival moment for them.
So, Bruce, President Trump is expected to highlight job growth and slowing inflation in his speech tonight. That's as our ABC poll actually shows him at 57% disapproval on the economy. So what can he say to turn this around?
Thanks for having me. Well, I am glad. I'm a numbers guy. I did watch, and we watched the GDP growth, and it's going to be the telltale sign, obviously, will be this next GDP growth in this next quarter, which we've had a 1.2 to 2.2% growth in this first, in 2025. So big, beautiful bills just kicked in. A lot of the incentives about to kick in for our taxpayers, our no tax on tips, et cetera, no tax on Social Security. So all these about to kick in. And also real quick, and let's just be very transparent here. We've never had an invasion of our nation's border in the history of the United States, in terms of all our health and human resources being overflooded with God knows how much money we spent on that. So it's a lot of big cleaning up going on, and that's why I say stay tuned on this next GDP growth. It's going to be strong. Like I said, when the BBB bill, the big beautiful bill, kicks in, you're going to see that in writing in terms of where that growth is going to help push this economy forward. You see the pharmaceuticals that he's going after, trying to lower those for a baby boomer, climbing, as myself. We're about to come on the market, as many of us, in terms of cost effectiveness on pharmaceuticals, and not to mention his board of peace, trying to put stability across the world and the nation, and that spurs economic growth also.
Well, Marsha, Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger giving the Democratic response tonight. What are you hoping to hear from her?
I'm hoping to hear some messages with a bright light here. We need some positivity here. We need to go high. It's a tough speech for anyone to give because it does happen right after the State of the Union. It will likely be very late, and we've seen these speeches often become more of a laughingstock here. So we'll be looking to her to have an adult in the room to give Americans a stark reality of where we are right now. The Americans, by these polls, by the numbers, just don't show that Trump is focused enough on their kitchen table issues. And he claims that he's won on affordability, but if voters don't feel it in their wallets, they don't believe it.
Well, Bruce, I had a chance to talk with GOP Congressman Pete Sessions earlier about the Supreme Court decision striking down most of his tariffs. Here's what he had to say.
I would like to see some of the president's advisors provide him feedback that says something like, this can still be a win-win. If we will work with the Congress, they too believe they have a role because it's a tax.
Bruce, this was a major piece of the president's economic plan. You touched on this a little bit, the taxes. You've known Donald Trump since 1990. How do you think he's going to take that feedback?
Yeah, stay tuned. Listen, it's still early. We're barely a year into his presidency. But, one thing about what people need to understand is like the 80+ million people who voted for President Trump, I didn't imagine that we would be legislating, from the nation's highest capital, where the president has that exact power to make these decisions that's best for the nation. And his cabinet, his advisors, not the Supreme Court. That's why there was 6-3. Now, if it was all in favor of one side, I'd be a little worried. But you obviously see where Judge Thomas and two of the other justices like, no, wait a minute now. So, stay tuned. There's more tools in the toolbox on how to address this. The nation's never been through this before, and this is kind of new to everyone. But once again, The 80 million plus people voted the president to make these executive decisions from the executive branch. I didn't think we'd be trying to run the nation from the highest courts on day-to-day operations.
Bruce LeVell, Marsha Espinosa, thank you both.